How you doing this morning, Keith?
Oh, I'm doing awesome. I'm excited.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get started. Again, welcome to everyone on the webinar. Today we are going, now Keith, I have never nailed your last name down on exactly to pronounce it. So I will let you introduce yourself. Keith is a good friend of ours that we actually met at the Experience in Las Vegas back in October. We have developed and cultivated quite the friendship. We have a massive belief in his revolutionary product that he has for containment. So we appreciate everybody jumping on board. Continue to put your name and where you're from over in the chat box. And without further ado, I'm going to turn this over and let Keith introduce himself.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Keith Gangitano. I won't test you on it. I'm the CEO of Zeppelin LLC, and we are the makers, manufacturers, inventors, distributors of the Airwall product line. The Airwall product line was, as Eddie mentioned, introduced to the world, as it were, in September, actually, not October. It was for the restoration industry. We designed a product to help you contain for mold, asbestos, and moisture, so that you could do containment and also chamber drying. And we launched to quite a bit of excitement, which was good for us to see, very encouraging. And we started doing things. And then, as we all know, COVID-19 came, and we recognized the fact that our product could be adapted to potentially help with this problem. And so we went to work on it. We came up with the Airwall RX, and that's why we're all here today to talk about it.
Fantastic. And if you could just kind of briefly talk about what it was about the Airwall that, versus traditional containment that caused you to even start this project to begin with, and how this has led into the product that we're going to be talking about today.
So just a little brief background. I got introduced to the restoration world through a very close friend of mine. He had started a restoration guys, wanted some help. His original partnership wasn't working out so well, so we did that. He took a bit of convincing for me, but I decided to jump in with him, and I gave it 90 days. I said, all right, we're friends first. If this doesn't work out, if I can't be friends with you at the end of this, it's not going to last. So we did, and it lasted 90 days, and we wanted to stay friends. So we ended it. But in that amount of time, I saw enough containment being built enough of it myself, and realized the limitations of it, failing tape and just not being able to, especially when the idea primarily came when I was under a house, how difficult it was to really get a good seal. So my brain started to work on it, and I woke up one morning with an idea, and convinced a friend of mine to build a prototype, and that was about 2.5 years ago. And we built the prototype for the crawl space, worked extraordinarily well. And then I had a harebrained idea to stick it in a doorway and see what it would look like. And it looked horrible. It looked terrible, but it worked. And so then we went to work on making a unit that would do that. And the Airwall X was born. And that was what we launched. We launched both products in Las Vegas, but the Airwall X was the belle of the ball. Everybody was quite excited about it. Of course, it's hard to miss. It's this gigantic yellow doorway that no one had ever seen before. And because of what it could do, which was create negative containment, when this COVID-19 thing happened, I realized that this product could be, with a few adaptations, really made to do what we call an emergency air. An AIR is an acronym. The government is filled with acronyms. It's unbelievable how many. But it's a airborne infection isolation room. It's what they do when people are super, super sick with things that are highly contagious. And so we decided we could convert a bedroom into that very same space. And that was where the RX was born, from that need.
I'm actually going to show a picture of the RX right now. And as you take a look at this, if you could just kind of explain a little bit.
Mhm.
This, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to be the first people to get to see this. If you notice, right now, this is running off of a HEPA 500, so off of the existing equipment that you already have. So not only does this set up, and you can see the gauges over there as well, but if you kind of walk through a little bit about this adaptation, I noticed that versus the Airwall X, that you actually have windows that you can see through, so that you can engage with the person on the other side, as opposed to them being behind a non barrier that has no visibility. Me personally, I'm just going to say this, my father is in assisted living, and we've talked at length about this, and I'm terrified for him because he has pulmonary fibrosis. And I do know that if COVID-19, if he was to contract it, that it's game over for him. And, can you explain really where your heart was in creating this product? Because I think that this isn't a product that's going to be out there to exploit a situation. This came from a genuine, sincere place of being able to try to find an alternative to help people, to minimize the impact of COVID-19, and to help people like my dad.
Yeah, that's pretty much right. Basically just a little bit about the design elements is, again, the Airwall X is incredibly good at what it does, but I thought it lacked it didn't have the human being behind it in mind when we designed it, because it didn't need to. It's a construction tool. But we realized that if someone was going to be behind this thing for several weeks at a time, that we needed to make some changes. And one of the first things was recognizing, like you addressed the window thing. If you're behind this barrier, the only way to see someone that you love, I guess we could do a Zoom call from room to room, but you'd have to break containment, or you could put these windows in. And I felt that was really important. I thought it was, good, especially if you start having parents and young children being separated, right? If mom or dad is behind the barrier, then being able to make eye contact with young children would be a super, not only just beneficial, but almost essential function of the wall. So that was one of the first things that came. And then we realized that if you look at the picture that's up right now, this is even better.
There you go.
Sorry about that. There you go. No problem. So if you look at the bottom of the unit, the two red openings, the one has a plug, the other one has a vent that can be moved in 360 degrees to change the flow of the air direction. Those are part of the Airwall X design. And besides allowing air to escape, you can also connect 9-inch lay flat ducting to it and duct it out of the building. Those are all elements that were in the original X. But we decided to double down on that and put two more up at the top. And the reason for that is because you'll notice they look differently, right? The holes themselves have a fabric in them. We call those an export. And initially we developed those for the bottom of the air wall to allow you to put one up and run cords and hoses through the wall without having to compromise your seal. And it just made sense to do that, and the pressure inside the bag means that they kind of snug in around whatever's going through them. It just made sense. Well, I realized that could also be used to pass medicine, water, reading materials, DVDs, rolls of toilet paper, given our preoccupation with toilet paper these days. But we decided that was the other thing that we needed to add to it, so that there could be a way to pass things along, especially like medication. I've talked to some nurses and actually some people that work in long-term care facilities, and that really struck them. In fact, I hadn't even given the medicine a thought. I was thinking water and food, and they said medicine. We can give our patients medicine, and they don't have to put themselves at risk or the patient. So that was that. And then the real obvious difference between the two is the color of the air wall. The white seemed more apt for a medical application, but that was really the least of our concerns. More about availability of the fabric. If we're going to respond to the demand that we anticipate, we need to be able to get a ton of this fabric, and white is the most common and most readily available color. So we switched to that. It also is easier to look at. I mean, let's face it, a big yellow wall with a caution X across it, it's fine for a construction environment. But if you're in there, I don't know, yellows and reds psychologically don't work on our brains well. They make us kind of antsy and, uncomfortable. And then the last human element that we added, and that one came a little bit later, but it seemed just as essential, is if we're going to provide windows, we also need to provide privacy. And so you'll notice at the top of the picture, kind of rolled up at the top with a couple of webbing and webbing loops and some buckles on it, a privacy screen. So the person inside the room can drop that screen if they want to just not be looked at for a while, or if they need to change or something like that. So we really tried to remember that we're putting a human being first and foremost behind this thing, not a disease. And that was really, really important to us to address that, because we really want to have an impact here. One of the biggest things that struck me when this thing happened, and I realized I might have a way to help, is that I'm just a regular guy. I mean, I've owned a couple of companies and always very small, nothing big. I don't change the world, outside of my little area and my friends. You don't really know me, and I don't care that you ever do. I don't look to be famous. That's not my thing. But I would love to make an impact, and I realized that this might actually make a really big impact in something that I could have never anticipated. None of us could, right? None of us saw this coming. So that was it.
Yeah, I think that I went to an elder care facility and saw traditional containment that they were using because of all the protocol that they're putting in place. And the stuff had come untaped from the top. The plastic was sagging. I mean, it really at that point had become a moot point. It just wasn't working. To where this, it stays inflated, and plus you've got the air scrubber that's scrubbing the air. Let's get into a little bit of the technical aspect of it, and then we'll come back more to the human side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of explain this, where the air scrubber is actually inside the room, right over here. What is the purpose of it being inside the room versus outside the room?
Okay, so inside the room is specifically to set up for negative containment. What we do is, we're taking the air in the room, running it through the scrubber, and pushing it into the air wall. And then by exiting it out the other side, whether you exit it to the other side of the wall itself because of maybe just physical limitations of the location, or if you duct it out, which is also an option. You also have the option of, again, each environment is going to be very different. You could duct it off of the inside. And in fact, if you go to our website, you'll see we've got a bunch of videos of the original Airwall X being used that way. We have the ducting and the HEPA filter in the same space. The ducting is merely crossing the room and finding its way out of a window. We do build window units. They are called exhaust. They fit into the window. They are also inflatable. They're using all the same air to inflate, and that allows you to easily duct it outside. We're really not pushing on the exhaust too hard right now because we have other ways of doing it, with just by ducting it either into another space or outside the wall. And I mean, to be honest with you, we're going to be pushing really hard just to meet the needs for the Airwall, the RX right now. So the window units are kind of taking a back seat at this point. But that is why we put the HEPA inside the room, so we can create that negative containment and give the air exchanges, the 12 air exchanges per hour that is recommended for an air unit.
And what is the instance that you would actually put the HEPA on the outside of the room?
So that would be in the restoration industry, it's anathema, right? No one in the restoration industry is gonna see the value of pushing all the bad stuff out into the rest of the space. But in this case, with medical isolation, that is an actually super valid application. You put it on the outside and you reverse the polarity, so to speak, of this unit. And now you're pressurizing the room. And that is specifically to protect someone who is not ill, but who is at high risk. And that could be, a cancer patient, a transplant patient. I've heard burn victims apparently are quite vulnerable. But in this case, it would be someone who is elderly or otherwise immunocompromised, who cannot put themselves at risk because maybe they live with people who are having to go to work every day and interface with people and never knowing if they're coming home with it. And so you can put a person in that space and know that at least while they're in there, they're not being exposed to any airborne particles. I mean, as with anything, in medical or otherwise, or even in the restoration industry, there are no guarantees. If it's used improperly or anything like that, it's not going to work, and you can always get transmission from another way. But this is going to help stop that, because physics are on our side, right? Bad
Sure.
things can't make it into the room if everything else is coming flying out at it. So.
Well, I kind of want to use this part, you know, to segue over into the video clip. And Sean, did you have that queued up?
No, Eddie, do you have it with you?
Yeah, I've got it. It's just I had it. Hold on just a second. I'm trying. My mouse is not responding to. There we go. So give me just a second here, and I want to let me see where I've got that. Okay, give me just a second, and I'm going to pull this up because I think this is a really good opportunity for people to kind of see what all there is involved with this.
Yeah, I think the video you're about to show is the one that shows me, you know, going through the full motions of setting it up from it's heaped on the ground and you know, and everything's disconnected and unplugged to up and running. The only step that we didn't, you know, illustrate because we didn't think we needed to was the sealing of the HVAC, because we know to do that.
Right.
You know, that's step one, right? So beyond that, we want to show you how quickly it went up. And in that video there, I don't know if you caught it, you'll see it as I set it up, but we wanted to make sure that we used the cleanest air possible for replacement air. So we actually built a prototype that we're actually finishing up now. We're getting the 3D print done, and we're talking to a mold maker so that we can filter the replacement air coming back into the room. Because if you have someone with a condition with their lungs, you really want to make sure that you're not putting in pet dander and things like that may be floating around outside the room. So you'll see me plug those in kind of towards the end of the process. Right now, you see me connecting the HEPA 500 adapter that we made so that the seal is reliable and really super effective in connecting to this particular unit. Try to make everything as quick and easy as possible. Side release buckles are used throughout because they're just really easy to use. And then this bar that you see, it actually goes through there's a couple loops at the top of the wall. That was in the Airwall RX as well. We wanted it to be, once you have it up, you can just kind of shove it off to the side as kind of like a curtain. If you're doing a lot of work in the room and you're not ready for setting up containment, but it also just means that it kind of stays put. So when you're passing through the wall, when it's inflated, it doesn't want to jump out of the opening. So. I'm just positioning it, and you'll notice on the left there, I've got some Magna Helix. I've got a really super sensitive one and a not so sensitive one to show, kind of just double down on showing you that we're really measuring the pressure inside the room. And, you know, standards, I've heard everything from 0.02 to 0.027. Well, in one case, we just wanted to see if we could just ramp it up entirely. And you'll see also here, I forgot to pull out the plug, so I'll be fixing that momentarily in the video. Lovely.
We've all done that. If anybody in the restoration industry thinks they have not done that, they're lying. So
we ramped it up one time and actually got to 0.3 inches of water, which is roughly 15 times what's required. Never want to do that in practical; it would actually be unsafe. But we can create quite the seal because our door just holds really, really well, and it does it using exactly what your tires used to stay stuck to the road: friction and pressure. And now you can show. See, I'm pointing down at I think it was 0.13 at that point, which again is way above normal. and you wouldn't need it that high, but I wanted you guys to see that it can really do it. And it's never.
So that's how easy it is to be able to walk into the room. You know, if you need to get in to actually do physical manipulation with the patient versus, you know, just doing pass-throughs. I think the really important thing, and I don't know if you showed this in the video or not, is that how quickly the MagnaHelix responded back and the pressure equated back in the room again, even having it open and that long, and then shutting it back, everything regulated relatively quickly.
Yeah, it really did. That's in the longer video that we produced, and that definitely shows the snapback, which is, you know, it's very fast, very, very fast.
So, and what was that you just put in?
Those were the filter inserts that I was talking about, and that's where we're getting the bulk of our replacement air. Again, we wanted to make sure that we weren't sucking it through the light switches and everything else as much as possible. So we put those in to make sure that the hair was coming back clean. Though each of those, it didn't really show it, but each of those had some filter media in there. And again, those were prototypes. We've got a really, really beautiful actually design that we worked out that we're finalizing right now for that aspect.
Well, I think that, you know, the human factor that you went through, there's been a lot of thought process that went into this. This wasn't just something that you threw together. You know, this was something that came out of the necessity from faulty containment. You know, I don't care how good your containment is. You know, there are challenges with being able to keep containment where it's supposed to be and doing the job that it's supposed to be doing. And, you know, plus the cost involved. I mean, you know, all of the different size poles that you need, all of the zippers you go through, all of the mill that you go through, you know, all these kinds of things. This thing is washable, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, we wanted to make sure of that. All the hard plastic components pop out and you're left with just basically soft, rubbery material. So you're not going to bang up your machine. It makes it really easy to wash. And, you know, we've talked among ourselves that, you know, the Esporta would be a perfect machine to do that. Although we did make it to be washed in a standard washing machine. So, you know.
Well, and I also too know that in previous videos, you know, for Airwall, you know, you throw the balls at things and it bounces off, and this really does become a barrier to be able to keep out, you know, airborne pathogens and you know, the saliva and things from sneezing and all of those kinds of guards. So, you know, if somebody wants to be able to get a hold of you, you know, these are where you can find Keith directly on LinkedIn, their Instagram, their Facebook, zeppelinguys.com to be able to find this. But I also too wanted to just leave this part of the moment up to say, okay, if you were going to say basically what the differentiator, why this product, why do you need this on your truck, especially now? Okay,
so it just made sense to me that restoration was a natural fit. There's two parts to an Airwall RX. I build, and one of them you all have on your trucks and in your warehouses, and that's the HEPA. You know, it needs to be powered by a HEPA. We need to be scrubbing that air, making sure that we're getting all the nasty stuff out. So it was just a natural thing for you guys to be able to. You have the equipment, but beyond that, you also can go in, as I'm sure many of you are, and going in and doing these level 3 cleanups. You know, you're in this case, you know, you're called into, let's say, a long-term care facility. You know, you've got 100 patients and you've got 5 or 6 diagnoses. So you know that building is crawling with COVID-19 and you don't know where it is. You're going to go in, you're going to scrub that place down. You're going to contain the people that have it, that are known to have it. And then when it's all over, when everybody gets the clear, you're going to come back, you're going to collect your equipment. You shouldn't have to do daily checks, which, you know, would be great, right? You just set the equipment up and you come back when it's over. You collect your equipment, sanitize it, and then you clean the rest of the space, because now, of course, you want it all out of all the spaces. And you've gone a long way towards, you know, really relieving that institution, which they're not set up for that. They're not trained in hazmat protocols beyond their nursing applications, which they all have some, idea of how to control for infectious disease. But you guys are just uniquely suited. Let's face it, ServPro's tagline, right? Like, it never happens, right? You guys are the ones that they call when bad stuff happens. And, we have this new bad thing that can happen. And we think that, the restoration industry is uniquely positioned to do that. And the Airwall RX, in this case, for the disease is exceptionally reliable. Again, we talked about the human factor that plastic just does not have. It almost looks kind of scary. If you're behind a plastic wall, you can't see through it. It feels, I think it would feel really kind of an intimidating environment. And I think this addresses that very effectively. And then as far as our actual product, you brought up our softball tests and our nail gun tests and all these different things. That was something we did at the end of a photo shoot to kind of have fun with our product and show you that, we can really deal with, we can deal with the real world, but we did it in kind of a fun way. This, I'm going to be honest, this is not fun for us, right? Not this part. This is serious. We take it very seriously. We've really zeroed in on what we think is a good design to address a problem that, is just affecting the entire world. But back then, when we were filming those videos and showing the Airwall X, it was great to, fire off a nail gun at it. Why not? It sounded fun. Our standard products that we offer to the restoration industry, we're excited about getting back to that when this is all over. We are still selling our product now, but and we're happy to. But the focus right now is trying to get you educated about this particular product and how you guys would fit in.
Well, I firmly believe that this product is unprecedented. It is. I think that it's a necessity. In seeing it, whenever we spoke with you at the experience, we told you then, it's like, there's a lot of new things that come out for restoration, and very few of them do. Myself or Sean get very excited about, and we were super excited the minute that we saw it and saw the potential of what this can do for the restoration industry. And I think that even more importantly now, in this time with a nation that is scared, that is reeling, this gives the restoration community the opportunity to be a superhero, to come in with a very humanized style of containment. And even if the person has been identified on site, I like what you said about containing the affected space, doing your Cat 1 or Cat 2 preventative measure cleaning throughout the rest of the space and containing the affected space, and then coming back and cleaning the Cat 3 environment, either through bloodborne pathogen protocol or HAZWOPER style protocol. So I think that this is an absolutely fantastic product. That there's some things that you wanted to share as far as directing them over to the Indiegogo, and as far as availability and things like that. So if you could talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to open this up for questions, because I know that you guys have got to be chomping at the bit, wanting to ask Keith some technical questions about this, which is another reason why we were so excited to really strategically partner with Keith, is because he's kind of a technical guru. He kind of geeked out over this stuff, and he spent time picking Sean and I's brain over some things, which, for me, that wasn't a very long process.
You beat me
Sean
to it.
Probably, yeah, exactly. Sean's a little smarter. But, so if you can kind of talk about, the Indiegogo, what your overall goals and objectives are for that, to be able to launch this product out, and potential availability.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the original product line, we were just bootstrapping it, and it was going fine. You develop product, you build product, you sell product. Your money gets plowed back in, you build more product, you sell more product. And it's this beautiful cycle of you just feed the machine, it just keeps going. And we were doing that, and we are doing that, and it's fantastic. The reason we decided to go with the Indiegogo is really twofold, maybe even three, but twofold for sure. The first thing is we do not have the resources, because we're still small, to be able to ramp up the production to what we expect once the word gets out, once it becomes known. And we're doing our best right now to do that, but we couldn't possibly ramp up quickly enough in terms of money. And then the filter element for one needs to be developed. And, you know, molds for injection molding and things like that, they cost a lot of money. And then we have to get some certain FDA approvals. They actually have what's called an EUA. It's an emergency use authorization, and it is specifically set aside for this situation. If you have any interest, you can look on their website and you'll see that, in fact, there's EUAs that go all the way back to the Ebola outbreak of 2012, and some stuff goes back to 2009. So these use authorization standard, and they're for just this type of thing. But they're not cheap. So we have to pursue those, and we have to get them ready to go. And that's what we are pursuing with the Indiegogo. We need to get the funding up as quickly as possible so we can respond. The other thing that the Indiegogo is geared to do is to get the word out. And I think that is probably the most important function right now. It's why we're talking to the press and why we're doing this. And we're trying to get as many people in the world who care enough, because they're personally affected in most cases, to spread the word and get it known and get it into the right brain. Because, you know, you mentioned I geeked out on it. Well, there's people out there at the CDC and NIH and WHO and all of it who this is their career, geeking out, you know, and understanding what an air is. You know, they didn't discover what an air was like I did. You know, I invented it first, and then I figured out what it was called. You know, they've always known. And so when they see what we've done, then the ball gets rolling. And so that is really why we went with the Indiegogo. We needed to raise the money fast enough to respond. And, you know, and I'm going to be honest with you, we're going to do our best, but the reality is cannot ever respond to an entire globe's desire for this product. There's no freaking way. Now the effect that we can have on this one, I think the faster we get going, the more impact we'll have, of course. But we're also going to be, like in most situations, this is going to help some here. We hope that quite significantly, and the longer this goes, the more impact we'll have, but we'll also be that much more prepared for the next one. And, you know, and if we can make an impact, then it's not only conceivable but expected that the U.S. stockpile that we've all heard about with millions and millions of masks and all these other things would have a section for emergency air units designed by Airwall, and they would be one of the first things deployed to take care, especially when they're in the early days of trying to control, which we all know didn't happen here. And I like to think that if the Airwall was available, maybe it could have. I don't know. You know, I mean, there were other things that went wrong, but I think we've all learned a big lesson on this, our governments and us and everybody else. So I think that might do it. And so that's why the Indiegogo. And we encourage people to go and check it out.
Well, we're going to, you know, Keith, I really appreciate it. Like I said, we are huge proponents of this. You know, we've seen it, you know, from day one. Joe Herbeck wanted to know if the incoming air, the makeup air, connectable to an air scrubber so the patient is receiving filtered air as well.
So, all right. So there's no connection for that now. What we did is I'm going to reference the video that you just saw. The air that was coming out of the Airwall was ducted out through the lower right corner of the vent, and it was kind of aimed up and to the left, so that towards the replacement air filters. So essentially, I mean, not all of it, but a good portion of the air coming out of that was being basically sucked back into the room. So it was HEPA filtered air, and then it was going through yet more filter media that we have designed to take out 11 so it's about a MERV 13, MERV 11, I believe, or MERV 13, right around there. So we're actually pulling in relatively clean air. Is it HEPA filtered on the way back in? No, it's not. That is one limitation of it. We have not come up with a way to do that. Now, if additional filtration was expected in the room and we anticipated that could be a possibility, then, you know, an additional, maybe not a HEPA 500, but an additional HEPA filter could be added to the room. But yeah, no, that is something we have not done.
Okay, guys, we want to first off thank Keith, for getting on here and educating the world about what it is that this product does. We do want to open it up for questions at this time. What questions do you have? Thank you, for your question that you had. Joe, we appreciate it. But if you guys would like, you can type the questions over there in the chat box or over in the Q&A section. So we're going to open this up for questions and answers. And if we don't really get any questions, then to me, it means that you did a really good job of explaining everything.
There you go.
Times to know, how much would something like this cost?
So that's on the Indiegogo page. We have I don't know how many of you are familiar with crowdfunding, but we have what are called perks on Indiegogo. And we are offering the Airwall RX at a price that will supply an Airwall RX, but will also help us fund. It is beyond our normal price. We anticipate, and this is going to be somewhat based on the FDA's requirements, medical things that we need to do, that we need to address. But we're estimating a cost of around $1,200 to $1,600. We're shooting obviously for as low as possible. We want your machines to pay for themselves, or your equipment to pay for themselves as quickly as possible. But the Airwall RX is a more complex unit to construct, and it comes with more equipment than the standard X. We need a HEPA filter adapter for it. 3 of the X ports that allow you to put the filter media in and pass things through. So it's just a little more complete and has a few more options than the standard. So we're hoping for around 1,200.
Okay, and Sean just put a link in the the chat box over there for the Indiegogo link if you guys are interested in there. Do we have any additional questions at this time?
I had one. I know somebody asked me, when do you feel like it will be ready for shipping? I know there's a lot of variables that are up in the air right now, but when do you feel like it would realistically, if everything falls into place correctly, would be in the hands of contractors by?
I would think that the first units would be received by around the 1st of June. That's our hope based on what we've been told by our manufacturing partners. Fortunately, manufacturing, there's a lot of room in that industry right now. People are wanting things to do. I've talked to our partners and they have a lot of idle hands. So they're ready to go to work on this yesterday. So we can really move things along, but that comes back to the Indiegogo. That's where we need to have the funds to be able to do that. So we can order things en masse and get the supplies to them so they can start constructing.
And this is going to be made in America too, right?
It's going to be made between Mexico and West. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, we did get a question from Valerie Nicholson that says, if this unit is meant to stay in place while someone remains in quarantine, what would be the daily charge to the customer that would be reasonable and customary?
So we've thought about it, and of course you have your standard line item for your HEPA, and that would be the first component. And then as far as goes, we're anticipating, I would say, between 50 cents a day for a standard unit. Maybe a little higher depending on where you are. Different parts of the country, obviously, things cost a little bit less. But yeah, I mean, 50 to 60, maybe $70 a day, something like that would do it. And when you compare that with hospitalization, which in many cases isn't even an option, right? They're going to send you home. They don't have room for you. There's not enough beds. So the sickest are getting the care. And so, someone who's not really, really bad, they're going to be sent home. So, I mean, it's conceivable that your medical insurance could cover it because you have a severe medical need, and they also manage the lives of everybody else in that room or in that home. And they're not wanting the other ones to get sick either. So it's definitely conceivable that the medical insurance industry would actually absorb the cost of that to keep people safe. Preventive maintenance, preventive medicine.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
I'm ready.
Sean, do you have anything to add?
No, I think this is, just looking around the country right now and hearing the stories, and especially in assisted living facilities, nursing homes, it is unbelievable the lack of precautions and preparedness they took, even from when this started. And
Yeah.
I just talked to one of our other business partners locally here in Oklahoma, and her father contracted coronavirus, still in the room with his wife. They can't separate them. They're not really doing any isolation. They were still receiving visitors up until a week ago. And I feel like, this is a right step forward to, prevent and combat infectious disease. And, it's coronavirus today, but what could it be in the future? And, I think this is a very interesting product, because beyond this outbreak, you can also continue to use this for containment as well, right, Keith? I mean, it's not just for, it'll have multiple applications beyond this, but from what I've seen, which is the Airwall line and products, it is revolutionary, the way it can be cleaned and reused. It's a no-brainer for people that work.
It definitely can be easily applied to the same service that the Airwall X is designated for. I mean, this is an Airwall X. It's just made to be more humane. So it absolutely could be used for a mold job or for chamber drying or any of the rest of the stuff that the Airwall X can be used for. So absolutely can be repurposed for that. But we also envision a possibility, especially as the medical industry becomes aware of it, that you could definitely be looking at uses for, I mean, let's face it, the common influenza virus. Every single year, tens of thousands of people die from that. And we all talked about it in the beginning. Oh, the flu is worse. The flu is worse. Kills more. And we're all scared now as we talk about COVID, but the flu is real, and people are still dying from that right now, while everybody else is dying of COVID. So, there's a real possibility that this could be applied during flu season. And another thing that occurred to us is, I personally know a few people, one guy in particular, whose allergies are so intense that for about a month a year, he can't drive. He can't see. His eyes close up. And I don't know if any of you have ever had those kinds of allergies before. And of course, it's thankfully a small part of the population. But I'll tell you what, if you have that kind of affliction, just sleeping in a room that has clean air for just one night would just be a game changer for you. So there are applications beyond this outbreak, and that's important to know.
We had another question that says, is it flexible for different size doorways?
Yeah, absolutely. It absolutely is. We have zippers down the sides that allow you to reduce the opening down to as far down as we've had it in 26-inch doorways. So we've had it in 26 all the way up to 88-36, and they are also designed to be attached to each other. So if you had to, for some reason, maybe a sliding door or a French door application, you could actually attach one wall to the other and cover a much larger opening.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Keith, what is the best way for people to get a hold of you if they have more questions in depth, so they can reach out to you directly if they want to talk,
sure,
or even doing a private order or investment?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, obviously, I would direct people to the Indiegogo page, which is Airwalls by Zeppelin. If you go to Indiegogo, it's INDIE GoGo, and then Airwalls by Zeppelin. You can call me at 408 Airwall. That's pretty easy to remember. And then you can also reach me directly at keith@zeppelinguys.com. So any one of those would do. You can reach out on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So all of those are also possibilities.
Awesome. Well, if we do not have any more questions, guys, we will be sending out a copy of the recorded link as well as the presentation to everyone. We definitely appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to learn more about this product. We encourage you to reach out to Keith so that you guys can find out even more about getting these on your trucks. and being to also to talk to peers in the restoration community about how valuable this is in a time like this. So if we don't have any further questions, I know on behalf of Tier Level with Sean and I, we are extremely grateful for everybody logging on. We hope that you guys stay safe. And again, thank you, Keith, for coming on board and talking to us about this amazing new product.
Thanks for your time, everybody.
Yep. Guys, thank you so much. And we will talk soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, everything. Thanks, everybody.
Take care.